So I was born a long, long time ago in a country far, far away in Iran. I grew up actually with, this passion and vision of going to space. I fell in love with the stars at a very young age, and all I wanted to do is become an astronaut. I even drew this picture, showed it to everyone around the house, and I told them this is how I'm going to go to space. And of course, as you can imagine, a young girl in Iran, no space program, nobody believed me, but I like to show people that they're wrong about me all the time. So not only I had to go to space, I had to go in a rocket that resembled my drawing. So you can see that how I was able to predict the future. I believe in imagination. I think human beings have this amazing gift that is very unique to us, and that's our imagination. And that's what allows us to actually create things that do not exist, create places, invent things. And it all starts with a spark of an idea we get, and it may be an inspiration we got by seeing something outside or watching something on TV. I was a Trekkie. I loved science fiction books, and soon enough you see yourself in those positions, in those heroes in the book, and then you can make it come true. I came to US when I was 16 years old. I didn't speak English, didn't have any money, but I knew I wanted to become an astronaut, and I found out that it's not going to be possible for me. I wasn't even a US citizen, and so I took a different path, became an electrical engineer, became an entrepreneur, eventually many years later sold my company and became involved with a project to make my vision happen. Because when I looked around for the Starfleet Academy, there was no Starfleet Academy. A long time had gone since the first endeavors of Yuri Gagarin to space, but the space was not open to the public still. There was no Starship Enterprise to take me to galaxies far, far away. So I decided that I'm going to do something about it. So when we sold our company, I had the privilege of meeting an amazing individual called Peter Diamandis, who had this vision and a dream of a competition that would ignite, innovation in space and open it up to everyone, democratize it. And that was the XPrize Foundation. And I became a partner in this endeavor with him and became the title sponsor of the Ansari XPrize. And that was the first XPrize launched. It was a $10 million prize to open up space for everyone. And it was to reach the edge of space, about 100 kilometers, and do it twice within 2 weeks. There were 26 teams that competed for this $10 million prize, and over $100 million was spent to win this $10 million. So we figured that, this is a fantastic idea, and it worked in space, it could work in other places. And not only it worked, but it worked in manners that we never imagined. And right at the time when the prize was won, Richard Branson stepped up and turned it into a business. Virgin Galactic was launched. And I believe maybe even this year, because they've done their successful test flights, we will have the first commercial passengers experiencing the flight to edge of space. Because of a lot of regulatory changes, policies that we changed, and the awareness we created, a $100 billion industry was generated. And you have companies like SpaceX or Blue Origin right now that are becoming partners with the government space agencies and really advancing innovation in space much faster than it has ever been seen before. We didn't stop at the Ansari XPrize. We have another prize-related, space-related prize that's ongoing, the Google Lunar XPrize. Even though the Google sponsorship ended just a few months back, because there was so much excitement in the teams, we are continuing the Google Lunar XPrize, and it will become just a Lunar XPrize for us that would allow other sponsors to step in. But until then, it is actually ongoing, and the teams are continuing to build their rovers for a moon landing, and we're very excited about the technologies that were developed for this prize. XPrize. And we are very, very proud to announce a very recent partnership with NASA and NASA's Frontiers Development Lab in a collaboration in looking at prizes around space resources. And you can learn about this at the NASA Frontiers Development Lab website. Is this okay? Good. I'll do a private session for you later. In Chinese. You know, we've been talking about AI and exponential technologies. We had our colleagues that talked on the trust in AI track. And a lot of these conversations around technology sometimes outside of these walls especially creates fear because it's something we don't understand, and human beings' natural response to new things and things we don't understand and we cannot predict is fear. But the reason we're here and we're having a session on AI for good is to actually overcome those fears and not allow fears to drive our decisions, but actually let hope drive our decisions. And that's why we want to use AI technology, use space technology, use everything at our disposal to create a beautiful future. And with everything at our fingertip, I think that's possible. And it's just, we need to use our imagination, and that's why we are here today. And I'm especially here today because I want to see a lot more young girls entering the field of technology and STEM and become engineers, become astronauts. People like Haga, who's a Syrian refugee who dreams of going to space, and I hope one day her dream will come true. So I'd like to share with you a video that takes you on a journey to space with me, and then I will pass the baton to my colleagues. Stars twinkle. It was something that I wanted to experience for myself. The mystery and the unknown out there always have been drawing me to space. The universe is calling me. So this is the winning of the XPrize flight.
Ansari, the title sponsor of the Ansari XPrize. Congratulations on today's flight.
I'm not afraid of risk. This is a risk worth taking, and having the view we saw today on the monitors of Spaceship One is just an experience that's out of this world, and I would do anything, give my life to experience it.
So when you fly on the Soyuz, they make a seat liner that casts it to your body. So this is the Leonardo da Vinci of the cosmonaut program casting this. This is the centrifuge training area. Zero-G flight. Actually, I had family members who came and joined me on one flight. These are my crewmates when we were getting ready for a final exam. Mikhail Turin was the Russian cosmonaut on this mission, and Michael Lopez Alegria was the NASA astronaut that accompanied me. This is the morning of the flight. So after going through the preparation, you board the bus and you actually go to the rocket and then ride a small elevator to the top to where the capsule is. We were just reminiscing about it, you know, coming down the elevator here.
And the next time we see her, she'll be 220 miles in the sky.
Okay, go for it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It was a very difficult experience for my family and all the astronauts' family to see their loved one go on these missions, but they're all very supportive in every aspect of the work. So on my mission, it took 2 days in the capsule to dock to the space station, and this is the docking actually. There were 3 crewmates waiting for us, making us feel at home.
Making his second visit to the International Space Station, followed by Anousheh Ansari.
Gentleman Anousheh.
For the first time, I will see the Earth as a really beautiful, glowing blue globe in the background of the universe.
So one fun fact about being in space is that because you're floating around, there is no concept of the ceiling or a floor. So you see equipment all over, and as you change your orientation, the floor becomes the ceiling and vice versa.
This is my sleeping bag right here, right by the best view from the world. The views from space station is amazing. From up here, everything's really peaceful, and you can't see the borders, you can't see different race, different religions. All you see is just one Earth, very peaceful and beautiful, rotating. And I think that's part of the reason I wish more and more people will be able to experience this firsthand, because talking to the astronauts and cosmonauts, they have a different perspective on life and how important it is for us to do everything in our power to preserve the only home we have in the universe.
So thank you very much. So please. So we have Ms. Liu Yang, who is the first Chinese astronaut, female astronaut, who flew to the Chinese space station, and also she's a pilot, a major in Air Force, and we're so lucky to have her here with us. Liu.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Liu Yang, a technaut. It's my great honor to attend this conference and share my outer space experience. 6 years ago, Shenzhou 9 spaceship, which was developed by China, was launched with 3 crewmates aboard, including me. It's the first time that we performed manual rendezvous and docking. It's also the first time that we entered Tiangong 1. Thus, we started a meaningful and memorable tour of space exploration. About 10 minutes after liftoff, the rocket sent us to the scheduled orbit. I'm sure I will never forget this long 10 minutes, featured the expectations and excitement. Though I have been well prepared and imagined 1,000 times the image of space, I was still greatly astonished. I can hardly describe its beauty because words fail to express how beautiful and miraculous it is. The boundless space tells me what brightness and infinity is. Looking back on the Earth from 340 kilometers away, the planet where humans and other creatures have lived for millions of years looks so glamorous. I saw the oceans with deep, shallow blue. I saw the clean contour of the land and the long coastline. This is our beloved homeland, Earth. She deserves our love, cherish, and protection. Sure, the beauty of our planet is quite beyond words. These photos and videos were taken in space. It's funny to share that at my first sight of the Earth from space, I couldn't help shouting, "Look, the Earth is round indeed." The unique microgravity environment not only challenges our space tolerance, but also brings a unique experience in meantime. Without constraints of gravity, I felt like a free fish swimming in the ocean of space. Microgravity set all the things free. They seemed alive, floating and flying. In Chinese fairy tales, we have an omnipotent monkey king who can travel 108,000 li with a single somersault. During my flight, I had a dream in which I transformed myself into the Monkey King, flying in the clouds, turning a somersault freely. That was amazing. Human exploration of space has never stopped since 1961. However, we should note that space activities are still highly risky. Thanks to the rapid development of artificial intelligence, we can anticipate that AI astronauts could be very helpful in future human spaceflight missions. Anyway, human astronauts will never be replaced, since they are still the essence of human spaceflight. We firmly believe that the essence of human space explorations will be significantly improved with the assistance of AI astronauts. Space exploration will never stop, since human spirits of exploration never come to an end. We are delighted to see more females join us and play a vital role in the exploration of the universe. We will always be expecting we step further into deeper space with astronauts and scientists from all over the world, men and women. It has been placed on the agenda in China to build a new space station around 2022. We have started the selection of new technauts. We are looking forward to a closer cooperation with international experts in our space station. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Liu. Now I'd like to invite Ms. Cristoforetti to join us. She is the first female Italian astronaut who flew to International Space Station, as you heard, with a 200-day record of being in space. Samantha.
Thank you, Anousheh. Mr. Secretary General, thank you very much for inviting me here today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and an honor to be on this panel. I know we do not have much time, so I will make use of my privilege of being the last speaker to be extremely brief, because the two ladies who spoke before me have so eloquently already expressed many of the things that, of course, I have experienced and felt as in my astronaut career as well. It's really funny, I don't know if I ever told Anousheh this story, but several years ago I read her book. So Anousheh is also an author. My Dream of Stars, I believe, is also the author, the name of the memoir. And so she was telling her story that she briefly outlined today in more detail about her upbringing in Iran and all her life story. But especially when it came to her childhood in Iran, all the time, every page I was like, oh my gosh, me too, the same for me, it's me too. So it was so funny how, I grew up in Italy and she grew up in Iran, but somehow our childhoods were so similar. It was an amazing experience. So yeah, I gave that away already. I'm a European Space Agency astronaut of Italian nationality. So I was born, went to school, grew up in Italy, in this tiny little village with a beautiful night sky with no light pollution. So the sky was a very powerful presence. Like Anousheh, grew up as a Trekkie, as a science fiction fan, very adventurous child, and wanted to go to space. I have to say, in my case, I was never told I couldn't, to be honest, and I never had any doubt that I could. I mean, I knew that it was going to take a lot of luck, because there's very few people becoming astronauts in Europe in a generation. In my generation, it was 6 all over Europe. So it takes a lot of very fortunate circumstances. But I think I'm one of those girls and young ladies who were actually never told that they couldn't do what they wanted. So I was pretty confident that if the circumstances allowed it, I would be able to do it. My path went also through engineering studies. I studied mechanical and then aerospace engineering at the University of Munich. So I chose from the very beginning to have quite an international education. During my university studies, I also spent time in France and Moscow. Of course, I knew that the Russian friends are a major partner in the International Space Station. So it wasn't by chance, of course, that I chose to go to Moscow to do my thesis. I spent a year there. Then I had a chance to come back to Italy and join the Air Force. And I became a combat pilot for the Italian Air Force. I was at the very beginning of my operational career when this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity came up to participate in the astronaut selection of the European Space Agency. And so became an astronaut in 2009, together with 5 other colleagues of diverse backgrounds. You don't have to be in the military, you don't have to be a pilot. Some of my colleagues, 3 of my colleagues are civilians, were and are civilians. A couple of them had no flying experience at all, one a pure scientist, another a pure engineer. So there's opportunities for very diverse backgrounds in the field. And then I started to training. I trained for several years around the world. I always had a suitcase packed. I spent a lot of time in airports, because when you're assigned to a mission to the International Space Station, we call it like that for a reason. It's this amazing infrastructure in low Earth orbit. It's as big as a football field, and it's basically this big laboratory where you can do research in microgravity, which is just a fancy word to say that you're weightless and things float. And that's very interesting for a number of scientific research disciplines in physical sciences as well as in life sciences. And so it's called international because it's the product of a big partnership between a different space agency. Of course, NASA and Russia are the major partners, but we, as Europeans, have a major contribution, both through the European Space Agency and in some cases also through bilateral contributions of single countries. Like my country, Italy, is very, very active in that sense. And of course, we have the Canadians and the Japanese. And so when you're an astronaut in training, you're basically going to all those different places all the time. Like you might be 3 weeks in Houston and 2 weeks in Russia and 1 week in Japan, and you're bouncing around the continents for about 2.5 years. And then finally, for me, also that moment that Anousheh showed in her beautiful video came about, which was the launch from the cosmodrome of Baikonur in Kazakhstan to the International Space Station. I was up there quite a long time. Rotations are typically 5.5 months. And then when we were getting close to our return, there was an accident of a Progress resupply ship. It's a little bit counterintuitive. You would imagine a cargo ship doesn't come, so you don't have supplies, so you have to come back earlier. In our case, because of the way things played out, we actually had to stay a month longer, which I thought was great. And so we ended up staying almost 7 months on a space station, doing a number of scientific investigations. There's typically on ISS about 200 scientific investigations in one, what we call long duration mission. I supported spacewalks. I was at the controls of the robotic arm. It's physically what astronauts do in the ISS world. We're a little bit all jacks of all trade. We're only 6 up there. The Russian colleagues, 3, take care mainly of the Russian operations on board, and all the American, Europeans, Japanese, Canadians, we take care of the rest of the station, and we kind of have to be able to do everything. That's why the training is so long. I look forward, of course, to go back to station eventually, probably sometimes in early the next decade. It will be my turn again. We're planning to operate space station at least until 2024, maybe even further beyond that. But we're also looking into what we called beyond low Earth orbit exploration missions. So that will be in a first step, building a habitat, like a small space station, in a very peculiar orbit around the moon, which will allow us to test our technologies and also our operational concepts for missions which are not so close to home. Space station is only 400 kilometers, so it's very close. We have robust concepts there, we have robust technologies, but when you go further away, things become a little bit more complicated. And then habitat, the orbit of that habitat is chosen in a way that it provides a relatively easy access to the moon surface, so that would be the next step. And then eventually after that, but then it's a little bit more, quite a bit more long-term, onto Mars. So artificial intelligence will be instrumental for all of that. Of course, AI is pervasive in everything we do in space nowadays, and I think many of the tracks that were presented today were proposing projects that rely heavily also on satellite data. So, of course, ESA, European Space Agency, is very interested in leveraging the potential of AI to make that data more useful. You know, we have a number of Earth observation platforms on orbit within the Copernicus program, and it's obviously of interest to have a system that in an intelligent way is able to fuse all that data and make it usable for different applications for European and world citizens. But at the same time, if I talk about things that are very close to my heart, which is, of course, human exploration of space, AI is going to be extremely important for that as well, because we all understand that a lot of the human mission, especially on the surface, we're talking moon surface, Mars surface, are going to be preceded by what we call robotic precursor missions. So autonomous robotics, autonomous navigation, even the ability of a moon surface rover to autonomously, intelligently pick a route, pick a sample which is interesting from a geological scientific investigation point of view. All of that will be extremely instrumental in making space exploration effective and affordable. Sometimes people ask me, why haven't we done that before? We went to the moon 50 years ago. Why are we talking now about maybe getting back in the next decade? It's not really that much of a question of technology. It's a question of the price tag and all the political implications that go with expensive programs. So the more we can leverage technology, and again, AI is going to be key in that, to make those programs efficient and affordable, the more likely it is that they will actually happen. Thank you very much.